Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak is releasing at the end of the 6th month of 2022, that being June 30th specifically. So I put together a list of 6 things I would like to see from Sunbreak, and also a few things on how it can improve its launch based upon the base game's launch, as the base game did make a few mistakes here and there. It was an amazing game, don't get me wrong, but it definitely made a few mistakes in the actual game as well as leading up to the game's launch. So starting off with the first thing, we have don't show everything on the roster in the trailers and marketing. So this was definitely a severe problem for the Rise base game. I think we got possibly even the entire roster or the majority of the roster shown to us before the game actually launched, so there wasn't much surprise in the actual game, as in older titles we would have at least like a decent handful, or maybe even more depending on which game you're looking at, where we didn't know what monsters were coming up and we still had a bit of a surprise factor going through the story and just going through all the quests in general. With Rise, I think we knew every single monster on the roster beforehand. In Capcom's defense, a lot of it did get leaked, so even if they didn't have it in marketing, we would have known about them. But even so, not everyone looks at the leaks, and if you are keeping up with the marketing for the game to just get the hype in, you would have known every single monster on the roster, pretty much. So hopefully, with Sunbreak, I hope they don't show every monster on the roster. I hope they keep like 40%, 30% just under wraps, and just keep it as a surprise for when we actually play the game. The second one is to launch with the intended roster regardless of the release window. So I think Halo Infinite would be a good example of this, as they were going to release the game in a very bad state, but instead they waited a year and released it with everything intact. I say everything actually, if you keep up with the game, it's not the best how they released it, especially the multiplayer segment. The campaign was pretty damn good, but other than that, the multiplayer is definitely in a pretty shaky place at the moment, and I think they could have pushed Rise's release a tiny bit back, so they could have included the Elder Dragons and the actual ending to the story, but instead, of course, they released it as intended so they can get it into the financial like reports, I think the reason was, and they ended up releasing the Elder Dragons a bit later and then the actual end to the story a bit later as well. So I hope that they are able to launch with everything intact how they intended for it to launch, and then hopefully it shouldn't be as rocky of a launch. Definitely with the Elder Dragons, I hope that they do have all the Elder Dragons they want for Sunbreak in the game. Of course, there will be a few Elder Dragons that they will release after Sunbreak. I'm guessing if Iceborne is anything to go by. But regardless, I hope they do launch how they want it to launch, and not like, I hope they're not behind on any of the development in any areas. The third thing is to bring the adult forms of the base game's monsters that are small monsters right now. So we have monsters like Agnactor and Tetsukabra. I think there's a few others. I hope they are able to bring the adult forms into the game, as it would only make sense. Same with Basarios and Gravios. I hope we are able to get a Gravios into Sunbreak. That would be pretty cool to see. Number 4 is a bit of a personal one, is buffing the Charge Blade, as I was an absolute Charge Blade main in Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate and World, and there's just something about it in Rise that just doesn't feel right. I just don't use it. I'm either using the longsword, the greatsword, or dual blades, and that is pretty much my weaponry like range. Of course, there are a lot of other weapons in Rise that are extremely well implemented, but Charge Blade is definitely one that I've used in prior games and I've absolutely loved to bits. But in Rise, something about it just doesn't feel right. And the fifth thing is to make Rampages more challenging and engaging and just have a stronger incentive behind them, as I think for the first handful, maybe even like 20-30 times, Rampages were pretty fun. It was a new concept, so of course it was pretty engaging at the start, but I think it does get boring quite quickly, like especially if you play the game quite a lot. It's quite a long-winded activity, so I think they definitely should try give a better incentive for it. And number 6 would lead on to that better incentive, and that is giving Apex monsters their much needed equipment. Whether that's just the armor, I'd be fine with, but if they could give armor and weapons, I think that would be extremely cool. I think it would give a proper incentive to actually kill them, like repeatedly, and I definitely think more players would be keen to tackle those Apex challenges. And of course, Apexes link into Rampages, so if you do want to do a Rampage style Apex hunt, you can do a rampage and you would still have that same incentive of getting the armor and weapons. But that is it for my list, guys. I will try keep it as brief as I can. Let me know down below what you guys would love to see in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. You can just drop a list down there, and I look forward to reading all of your lists and just seeing what you guys would love to see in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak, whether that's at launch or if it's after the game's launch. Definitely drop below when you do put your lists what you would like to see at launch, if it's directed at the launch, or if you would like to see it anytime during the life cycle. But that is it, guys. I hope you did enjoy the video. As always, a like would be extremely appreciated if you did enjoy, and subscribe for a lot more Monster Hunter content. Be sure to join the Discord, link is at the top of the description. There's a lot of awesome other Monster Hunters in there, and thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.